So my name is Sia. I am, if you have never come to any of our events before, I'm part of Black Tides. I'm the operations lead, and that just really means if something is happening, uh, I'm probably making somebody do it or reminding someone to do it or doing it in the background for what you see. Today is one of those few times that I am presenting. So, hello. And thank you, Auntie Kim. Auntie Kim is here. She is our co-founder. So we're a small community of Black professionals in data. We meet every so often. We share, knowledge like this or technical sessions. I will share a screen where you can go sign up for all the other sessions that we have. We have some pretty nice, just communing ones like coffee and code, so you can sit with people and catch up on your homework or projects. And I'm going to also be doing a SQL session excuse me, later this month. So thank you for joining. To start, I will share my screen and we can go from there. So let me know if we're good, if you can see it. Any thumbs up? Yep, good. Okay, great. All right. So I told you a little bit about Black Tides and what I do, but in my day job, I am a data engineer. And that is sort of my new journey that I have embarked on in the last couple of years. It has not always been that way. So I'm hoping to share some of the things that I learned from that. A few reminders before we start. I realized that we are not all the same. I came in here, I was playing some African music. I was listening. I missed home a little bit today, so I was in my playlist. So I am an immigrant, three-time immigrant now. And my worldview might be different from yours, so it does not necessarily mean that everything that you take here, you copy and paste. My hope is that you do what works for you and that there is something of a framework that you can take and then apply it to your own situation. Also, I would like to say, feel free to unmute because I have one screen now, so I can't see you if you are chatting with me. So FYI. And then what else? Oh, yeah, this is not a once over thing. So personally, I have had to do this multiple times. So focus on the journey because it's going to be sort of less frustrating to go through as you navigate. All right, so with those reminders, let's sort of dive in. So if you look at the title of our presentation, it has a lot of words in it. I would like to focus on two. First one is growth. So growth generally tends to have this positive meaning. We think of it as something with a net positive at the end of the day. It's not necessarily seen as a bad thing. Just if somebody said word association game growth, usually it's very positive. It's also very easy not to think of it in the moment because it's subjective, it changes. So the definition of it could change for you as well. On the other hand, we have plateau, which I kind of almost regret using this now because I have said it so many times, it has lost its meaning. I do not remember how to say it anymore. But whereas growth is generally positive, a plateau is very, at best, it's just one of those. It's there. Nobody has strong feelings about plateaus. And if they are strong, they're never, at least in my short life experience, positive. So it's mostly, oh, this is a slump, it's flat. It's sort of almost quicksand sort of thing. And that's how, even if you look in the dictionary, it's has some of that as some of the synonyms. However, I would like to focus on the two words together today. So I know we're defining a lot of things, but I think it's helpful. So I just indulge me for a little bit with my mathematical degree self, and let's look at this chart, right? We have this arbitrary measure of growth that we think of when we think of a version of ourselves. And I just talked about how plateaus are not necessarily seen as yay, you just don't go yay when you think about one. But just because you have a plateau happening, another definition of it is it's just a slow down period. It does not mean that there is no growth happening. It just means that based on your current expectations of what growth should be like, it's not going the same way. So I made up a thing. Let's say I was tracking my growth with an arbitrary metric from 6 years ago, and I was growing pretty quickly, and the rate at which I was growing was always positive. After 2020, I don't know, the pandemic happened, a bunch of things happened. It slowed down, whatever I'm tracking, whatever I equate to growth, and it's still going up, but the rate at which is going up has gone down. So that is the sort of meat of plateau. I'm going to say that word very few times today. I'm going to try that I would like to focus on because it's a gap between where you were, this version of you from, say, 2017, and where you are now. But you don't have the same expectations and standards for yourself. You have sort of changed how you view maybe the world, maybe you had a big event happen, anything. So you have a different way of seeing what growth is for you, but your situation hasn't changed. So you sort of have these new standards, but you haven't updated what having those standards means for your day to day. One of my favorite, if you have not encountered me before, also I should mention right now, I'm a huge sports fan. And one of my favorite coaches, just because of the quotes, is Mike Tomlin of the Pittsburgh Football Steelers. And he has this quote, and it says, "The standard is the standard." And every time I feel like I'm going to slack off on something, I just remember that. Every time I meet someone who is so great, I have had the privilege of interacting with some amazing, talented people. And sometimes I say to them, you are redefining what the standard is. So it's really hard because nobody else did it. And then people will get to say the standard is the standard. And then when they think of the standard, they think of you. So if you think of yourself as always having to redefine what yours is, that sort of makes it hard because it's not necessarily a vacuum all the time. You have to account for how things are changing. And I consider myself, career-wise at least, to sort of more of a risk taker than other people. It's not because I think it's a privilege to say that. I am an immigrant, so my worldview is a little bit different. And I do not have dependents. I don't have kids. So, like some decisions you can just make differently than other people, but there is always contingencies and trade-offs. And so I am hoping that I can share sort of my mental framework for how I get to that point. And then from that, allow you to see some examples of when things need to change and how I navigate from that slump place when I get there. So we have a contingency table. I'm being very mathy today, but it's going to end. The way I see things when I have to make a career decision is there is this way I'm feeling about the situation I'm in. You know, like you could be very, very happy, or whichever word you choose. It could be fulfilled, happy, satisfied. Let's not say complacent, but that sort of umbrella of terms. And then there is also the amount of control you have of said situation. So you don't necessarily, this is like a two-dimensional way of thinking. Uh, we're going to go through all of the boxes where there is intersection. So you could be happy with control of changing things. And this is a sense of control for how you can change what is happening. Baseline. And then, so again, you can be happy with or without, and you can be unhappy with or without. So I'm gonna go through the boxes, starting with the least interesting ones to me, because this is how my brain works as I am going through a thing. So the first one is really boring in that it's a situation where everything here is framed by your expectations. We talked about that. But you are happy and you don't necessarily have control to change what's happening. So say you have a nice job, you like your job, you like your teammates, you like your manager, you get a promotion, you did not control the promotion, I will say, because sometimes you work hard and you don't get it. So in that framework, think of it as the things that are external to you that no matter what you do may or may not happen. So, you know, good things could be happening. You're getting promoted, people are recognizing your work. That's great. That's fine. Your expectations align. Inboxes, if this is inbox full, you're good. There is nothing to worry about. Then we have this box, which uh, I like puns except for some puns, like the football puns sometimes is too much, but this box is when you are fulfilled and you are happy and everything is going great, but you get this external factor that you can change, and it's tempting. It does not mean you should not do it. An example is, say you have a really nice job, you live in a nice neighborhood, like really good, like say, I don't know, you live somewhere in New York City and you make 300K. And your old manager was like, hey, I am now a CTO of this company, Chief Technology Officer, for those who are not aware. And I think that this next phase that we're going into, it would be great to have you. I miss working with you. I think you would be great for this. I've been following your career since we stopped working together. What can I do to get you to come work with me? Oh, and by the way, it's in DC. And you're like, I don't want to move. I like my neighborhood. I like my walks. I go to the park, whatever. And they say, I know you live in New York, but you have to be in DC for this. It doesn't mean you have to go to the office every day, but you have to be in DC, whatever the reason. So you say, I'm gonna tack on 150K and tell them, because I think they're not gonna come back. Like that's too much. And they come back and they say, yeah, I can do that. And then you're like, I'm thinking about it. Then they say, I'm gonna go to 500K. And I will get you a car for the first month so that you can figure out your transportation situation. And let's say we help you find your apartment. We give you relocation, everything, everything. And you're like, this is great. So you move, you go, and you like everything except your commute is longer. You don't really know your teammates. You don't get to talk to your old manager as much as you thought you would talk to them. So you used to be fulfilled and happy, and now you're like, but I'm less happy. But you used to be happy, but you changed it. So it's not the end of the world. This is like small potatoes. You could change it back, right? So it's not like you changed it and it got drastically worse. You were already at this baseline expectation of happy, and then you made a decision to take a risk. It's fine, but you just have to make sure your expectations once you make the change, are going to align with your new reality. So that's that. The third one, I am not going to talk about this movie, but it was really hard to resist. This is when everything is bad. You cannot change anything that's happening and you do not like it. Just, it's not good, okay? This is Andy Dufresne in the movie The Shawshank Redemption from 1994. If you have not watched that movie, you should. And you can't necessarily control the external things, the big things, like, let's say, for my example, I have been in situations where, because I'm an immigrant and I have a specific type of work permit, I can't necessarily leave a job. I have to stay there, or I can't change jobs because I only have maybe like 90 days to find a new one, or I have to leave the US, for example. And so even if I don't like my team or my manager or anything like that, it's really hard to make that decision because I might end up worse off. In this situation, I think is probably a strength is it sounds really easy. It could be privilege, but you have to leave the things you can't control. I say that because a lot of the time we might dwell, and then you then spend a lot of mental energy sort of trying to figure out, okay, but what if I try to, leave, and what, I don't like this place, and every time you go into a meeting, you're just stressed. But if you just leave that and focus on the things you can control, which we're going to get into, that is sort of aligning your expectations to your reality. So that's where we want to live, is where it's most adventurous. You know something has to change, and you have the power to change it. And that is, to me, the beginning of where you can start to redefine what growth means, because maybe it's because it doesn't work anymore for you. The things that you used to value and think of as success, they don't work anymore. So you kind of have to do a gap analysis and see, okay, what needs to change? What is it on me, and what is not on me that I can do? In that, let's talk about two sets of things. One is tangible things, like, let's say you want a new job because you are not getting the most visible projects, or you would like to get paid more, right? Or you would like a title that reflects the work you're doing. And every day you go into work, you're like, I'm in a slump. I'm already doing these things. I know how to do them in my sleep. I don't want to keep doing them. That could be a slump. Or your manager is not necessarily always in alignment with you, or the expectations that you have and they have are not aligned for whatever reason. I do not know your managers. And so all of this is some sort of, okay, I need to get out. You know something needs to change. But again, a lot of the time we see the external things, the money, the title, before we can think about how to get out. For me specifically, by the time I notice those tangible things, I'm already stressed, I'm tired, I'm burned out. And so about 2.5 years ago, which is when I started really thinking intentionally about this, I was not, my time was everywhere. I was trying to hold on to a lot of things. And I had to find a way to think about, what can I work on consistently so that I can get out of this slump? And then the next time, if I am in this position, I can recognize it early and then do something about it. So it's not the stuff, it's the habits. You have to sort of focus on your habits. So if you think about every time when you are at work and things are going great, for me, it's like I'm knocking out tickets. If you joined a little bit later, I introduced myself. I am a data engineer. And so there are these ceremonies that teams do, like you make tickets, you assign work, you review each other's work. And when things are going great, you're not really focused on what everything else is going. You're just like, I'm doing my stuff. I'm working on my tickets. I'm finishing work on time. I'm logging off at 5 or whichever one your country is, like the PM time that you are allowed to clock out. And so in that sense, you're not necessarily, you might even notice good things. Like, for example, when I started a new job 3 years ago, I noticed that in 3 months, it would take me less time to answer people's questions because I started to understand the context of things. So it was like, oh, it took me like 15 minutes to find this thing or to write this query because I knew where to find everything. Whereas before it took longer. So you tend to notice like the good things, which is nice. We should, like small wins, they add up. But it's not just about the big thing, like the promotion that comes with it or the title change. You have to figure out how to work on the things when you notice your habits are changing on the other side. So like the plateau, you notice when you can knock out tickets faster, but you also have to notice when that is going sideways and not try to fix it after it has gone sideways. So I'm gonna give you some examples from myself. My one biggest fear is walking into a room and not learning something from anyone. Like if I go in a meeting, and sometimes this happens, like sometimes it could have been an email, but if it's like a really technical situation or topic and it's something new, and I walk in and I feel like I got out without learning anything or feeling like, oh, I knew everything, that's a problem. So when I am impatient, it just tells me that I'm a little bit bored with what I'm doing. And I tend to, write that down every week or 2 weeks when I'm having a really tough time and I can't do it every week. I'll just be like, what meetings, did we cancel? What meetings did we not go to? What meetings did we think were a waste of time? That sort of thing. And then defensiveness. Oh, by the way, I try to take some examples of things that are universal human experiences. So I'm hoping if you're perfect, congratulations, keep it up. But if you are like me, have gone through some of these scenarios, hopefully this is helpful. You're not the only one. I have been defensive sometimes with the things I have written down, or because I'm scared of learning the new thing. So I'm trying to hold on to this version of things that is comfortable, even though I know that it's not going to sustain me long term. And that's not good. I've also been in teams where I have teammates who are defensive. So I also recognize it really quickly is, most of it is usually a fear of change. Like you suggest an idea and they're like, well, it works. Why are you trying to change it? That sort of thing is not really helpful because you are spending time worrying about being right than trying to get it right, Another one is being unfocused. Okay, if you are a curious, nosy Rosie like me, probably like to learn a bunch of things, even if you don't have to work on them or do them. And I tend to sometimes when I am procrastinating because the thing I have to do is not interesting enough, or I have done it a million times and I'm looking to just, like I'm in a slump. I need to be motivated. I need to learn something new. I need to figure out, break the bounds of my intellectual horizons. I will procrastinate. I will do a bunch of different things, and that will lead to not prioritizing properly and being unfocused. So also not good, but also a very good indicator for me that something has to change. Last one is going down rabbit holes. So this is also the curiosity part. Sometimes it's really good. So we have these, if you are an engineer or a developer or any sort of technical team role, it does not have to be strictly technical. Sometimes you're working on a problem and you're like, I'm just going to spend another hour on this and then I'm going to go. And then it's 10 hours. Now, the high of figuring it out is really, really good. But did you have to spend 10 hours? Usually, if I'm trying to do that as a habit, so like sometimes it's nobody's solving this problem, it's bothering me, I want to solve it, right? But sometimes somebody else has solved it a million times over. If you reach out to someone, they could probably help you out for 30 minutes and then you don't have to spend 10 hours, maybe two. So usually I'm trying to say, hey, I know I can do this, and I'm feeling insecure about where I am in that point and what's working for me. And that insecurity is sort of driving my, what's it called, ego to, you know, keep diving and diving in, but I don't always have to be the one diving in, right? So some of the ways I have worked through these specific examples to sort of reset and look at the cracks and where they are and say, okay, I need to fill these gaps so that I'm set up before I go to the next thing, is when I am impatient, I try to make knowledge sharing a thing. What that does is it allows you to show other people how to do the things that you are so bored of doing, and spreads the knowledge of the team, which is already a plus, right? That's already a plus. You're sharing knowledge, you're increasing institutional knowledge, and also you are freeing up your time to do other things because somebody else can do this thing that you don't want to do anymore. That works really well. When I am defensive, I ask questions. I try not to say, why are you doing this? That's not a good question. So you also have to ask good questions. If somebody's questioning, which has happened, why did you write? I think there's a better way to write this function or to change this so that it's more efficient. I could be like, hey, thank you for your review. I noticed that you suggested this. I would like to understand a little bit more about how to do it. I could, if they have time, set up a pair programming session. If it's something you've never heard of, but you have to work on, ask them to send you a document to read. What this does is, one, it allows you to broaden your options. So you're learning new things and you are sort of unintentionally increasing the scope of things that you could then go into if this thing is not serving you anymore. And another thing it's doing is, we don't talk about this as much, I don't think, is internally you are also networking. So I like to talk to teams, people not on my team. When I'm stuck, I also search other teams' channels. Like, hey, I saw you all were talking about this. I'm stuck. Can you help me out? Now, having no focus, say no. Because it's if somebody dangles something shiny in front of you, you could be like, okay, maybe I could work on this instead. And then you have 10 things. But you could just say, hey, this is really interesting to me. I would like to look into it with you. Maybe not today, but tomorrow. Again, network internally, allows you to build relationships, allows you to guard your time. It also, saying no helps you to train the people you work with to know how to work with you. If my manager is messaging me right now, like right now in the East Coast, it's 5:35 p.m., they will not hear from me until tomorrow. Now, if I'm on call, of course I will message back. But if you learn how to say no to maybe distractions now, but they could maybe later not be distractions, but it also helps you sort of prioritize things better. And then the last one, which I have had to do recently, is time boxing. And I'm not necessarily talking about Pomodoro, like when you do I'm setting my clock for 20 minutes and then I'm going to rest for 5 minutes. No, it's like, okay, I have this thing. It is boggling me. I am only going to spend 2 hours on this. I am going to say no to everything else. I'm going to block my calendar. I put a no. It works because people are like, why did you put no? They came to schedule something they can't. And just focus on that thing. If you can't figure it out after 2 hours, you have to stop because you have not moved the needle. You have to stop. You have to try and ask for help. Some of these, you can tell it's like cyclical. Some of these things help you in multiple ways do the same thing. And it builds a habit that you don't always have to sort of reinvent the wheel. You can try things, you can ask for help, you can collaborate, you can learn new ways to do things, you network by doing that, you train people how to work with you by doing that, you save time. At the end of the day, you will have more time to then figure out what the next thing you want to do is because you have mentally unblocked yourself. Because that to me was the revelation, is if you unblock yourself mentally in your day-to-day, you are creating extra pockets of time and energy so that you don't burn out and also so that you can start preparing slowly for the next phase. So this is the most I've talked today. To recap, understand how you change, when you change, what that means, what that looks like for you, and track your habits. Sort of always be open to revisiting what growth means to you in certain seasons. If you have a big life change, if you have a big change at work, there was 1 week this year where I changed my manager, my team, and I moved to a different country. So it's like every time you have these seasons where things are really changing, think about what growth means and what success means. It might not be the same thing as before, and that might change why you think it's a slump. It might just be a change and not a slump. And that way you will be able to track your habits and catch the signs, because you don't want to make decisions when you're desperate. Sometimes you have to, but if you don't have to, if you are practicing this, then you make time to do it often enough that you have built up the knowledge of how you are changing. And then you're not going to do things when you're burned out. Like you don't go to the grocery store when you're hungry, which I did on Saturday. And then, as always, you have to do it over and over again. It's not a one-time thing. It's not a pill. It's not a cure. It's going to change. So before I used to say happy, but then this year I say, what keeps me going? That's my definition of success and fulfillment. That's it. So be open to changing that definition, but then also iterate over that. And one last plug for Shawshank Redemption. The character of Andy Dufresne is the most hopeful character I think ever written. And if you are a subscriber of the human condition of hope, I think my hope is that today you took away that, everything works out at the end. I don't remember who said this, but if it's not working out, it's not the end. So just keep finding ways to unload the things you cannot handle so that you can pay attention to the small things you can build up. You can make big wins, and then you can then plan ahead and say, okay, now I'm building these skills. I can use this to apply to the next job. You have time, you're not rushing, you're not necessarily burned out when you're doing it. So yeah, that's all I wanted to tell you today. Thank you for listening. And here is a QR code if you would like to go see some of our other events. You can sign up there. We have a Coffee and Code coming up And we also have, I'm teaching Seko 2 Saturdays from now on the 21st. And Auntie Kim is doing 2 coffee and codes on the 14th and on the 28th. So if you want to catch up on some work, chill, chat for like 15 minutes and have quiet time, that's perfect. It's a small group. But thank you, everyone.